I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Peabody City Council, February 28th, 2019, 7:30 p.m. Wiggins Auditorium. This meeting is being televised live on cable channel 9 and is being taped by Peabody Access Television and is also being recorded by our City Council stenographer. Please join me in a moment of silence. All in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. I'd like to move to item 4A on the agenda. The clerk will read the notice. My apologies. Prior to moving to item 4A, I would like to let the public know that we have the Student Council government from Peabody High School sitting next to their counterparts on the council. If anybody would like to introduce themselves or introduce their counterpart, that'd be great to do right now.
I'm Erin. Sorry. I'm Erin, and I was elected for counselor at large.
I'm Sarah, and I was elected to Ward 2 counselor.
I'm Jack, and I was also elected to counselor at large.
I'm Will, and I was also elected counselor at large.
And that's Will Manning, my nephew.
I'm Sydney, and I was elected to Ward 5.
I'm Claudio, and I was elected to counselor at large.
I'm Andrew. I was elected to city clerk.
Thank you all. It's very nice to have you all here tonight. If you notice, I have no... If you notice, Jim and I don't have a counterpart, and Mark, we're all afraid to run against us at some point. Just wanted to make that known. With that, we'll move to item 4A on the agenda. Clerk will read the notice.
Notice is hereby given that the City Council, the City of Peabody, will conduct a public hearing on Thursday evening, February 28th, 2019, at 7:30 p.m. in the Franklin Wiggin Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. On the application from Spire Hospitality LLC, DBA Peabody Holiday Inn, 1 Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass., requesting the transfer of an entertainment license for the use of televisions, stereo, radio, and live entertainment, including DJ and live music at said 1 Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass. Peabody City Council Councilor John G. Turco, City Council President.
Thank you. And the petitioner can approach the podium. Thank you, sir. You could just press the button to speak, and please state your name and address for the record.
Yep. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the City Council. My name is John Aida McDermott, Quilty & Miller, 28 State Street, Boston, the attorney on behalf of the applicant. This is Karina Tejada Hasseltine. She is the manager of record at this location. This is the Holiday Inn on 1 Newbury Street in Peabody. As you stated, this is an application for the transfer of the entertainment license. And if you just briefly, would you like just background on her experience and what we're looking to do here?
Certainly.
So Karina's been at this location for the past 12 years. She's been involved in all aspects of the hotel. She's staying on under the new ownership. So essentially what we have here is a new ownership on this location. All the day-to-day operations will remain the same. The hours of operation will remain the same. So what we're looking for approval this evening is just simply keeping the same parameters that were in place for that entertainment license as the prior ownership for this current ownership.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody in the audience here to speak in favor of this petition? Anybody in the audience to speak in opposition to this petition? Seeing none, Councilor Melville.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Councilor Sasslaw was not able to be here tonight. He asked me to just to walk you through this. So nothing is changing through you, Mr. President, to the petitioner. So nothing is changing. It's just a corporate entity change, correct? The operations aren't changing.
Making sure the light's on. Yes, nothing is changing, just a ownership change, and day-to-day operations are going to remain the same.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the council?
Move to close the public hearing.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. President, to approve the transfer of license from Spire to Spire Hospitality LLC, doing business as Peabody Holiday Inn, 1 Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass. For the use of television, stereo, radio, live entertainment, including DJ and live music at 1 Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass.
Roll call vote.
Councilors Mitsoulas.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Charis.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0, 1 absent.
And while we have you at the podium, we'll move to item 4B on the agenda, and the clerk will read the notice.
Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Peabody will conduct a public hearing on February 28, 2019 at 7:30 p.m. in the Wiggin Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. on the application from Spire Hospitality LLC, DBA Peabody Holiday Inn, 1 Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass. requesting the transfer of an inn holder's license at said 1 Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass. Peabody City Council, Councilor John G. Turco, City Council President.
And if you want to give a brief synopsis, I think we get it. But
Yep. So not to talk too much up here, but same thing. No change of ownership here. No change of day-to-day operations. A change of ownership. So with the in-holder's license, we're seeking approval to allow them, obviously, to open it up for lodging to travelers under that in-holder license. So again, change of ownership simply.
Thank you very much. Anybody in the audience here to speak in favor? Anybody in the audience here to speak in opposition? Council Melville.
Move to close the public hearing.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the transfer of license, an in-holder's license to Spire Hospitality LLC, 1 Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass. So move.
Roll call vote.
Councilors Mitsoulas.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Charis.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0, 1 absent.
Thank you. Good luck.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ray. I'd like to move to item 4C on the agenda. Clerk will read the notice.
Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Peabody, acting as the special permit granting authority, will conduct a public hearing on Thursday evening, February 28, 2019 at 7:30 p.m. in the Wiggin Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. on the application from Paul McGinnity, 13 Rear Main LLC, 13 Rear Main Street, Peabody, Mass. for a special permit seeking to allow the sales and storage of beauty supplies in the lower level of said 13 Rear Main Street, Peabody, Mass. is filed in accordance with sections 1.5, 6.1, and 15.7 of the Peabody zoning ordinance. Peabody City Council, Councilor John G. Turco, City Council President.
Please state your name and address for the record and give us a reason for your petition.
Paul McGinnity, live at 13 Rear Main Street, 2nd floor.
If you'd like to give a brief explanation of your permit application, I believe it's self-explanatory, but you can do that if you'd like.
Yeah, sure. So I'm coming before you tonight to ask for a special permit to store barber supplies, beauty supplies in the basement of 13 Rear Main to sell out of the basement. Well, not sell out of there, but to store and then do a mobile sale with beauty supplies.
Thank you. Anybody in the audience here to speak in favor of this petition? If you'd like to speak in favor, you can come right up to the podium. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is George Crujanos. I live at 10 Shirley Lane in Peabody, Massachusetts. I'm a business owner right next to Paul, and you know, seeing Paul evolve his business and move forward to be more successful. That means we become more successful, and it's good to see a neighbor, you know, progress like that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is anybody else here to speak in favor of the petitioner? Please state your name and address for the record.
Pat Tedesco, 28 Jennifer Lane, Peabody, Massachusetts. I got to meet Paul probably in the last 3 years. We abut each other, so I'm in a butter. He's just a great kid, and from what I can tell, he's really into the community, so I think whatever the city can do to help him, he's always helping the city, so I'm here to support him.
Thank you very much. Anybody else in the audience here to speak in favor of the petition? Anybody in the audience here to speak in opposition to the petition? Council McGinn. Whoop. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Actually, I was a member of the audience here Monday night, and I couldn't agree with you more. So, councilors, if you could remember to speak clearly until we get the sound system repaired, which hopefully is going to be soon, I would appreciate it. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. McGinnity has a very well-run operation in the downtown. He's been thriving since opening a few years ago, right down the street from me, which is great to see. This is an expansion of his existing operation. I see no adverse impact on the area, and my intention is to support this petition. I'll open it up for comments from any other councilors. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilman Souls, before I do that, I just wanted to be sure. Sir, did you want to speak in opposition to this permit? I didn't want to prevent you from speaking if that was your intention. Thank you very much, sir. Councilor Matsoulis.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've gotten to know Paul pretty well. He runs a great business. I've been in his shop. I get my haircuts there, and he's got all the room he needs to add what it is, the supplies that he's looking to sell. And Paul is a credit to the community. Paul belongs to a lot of organizations and a lot of charitable organizations also. And he's a new business in Peabody, and you know, he's the type of businessman we need in Peabody. I'm supporting his permit this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Rossignol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have actually one question, because I'm in full support of the petitioner. Will there be any flammable items that you'll be storing in your storage area?
No, there will be not.
Thank you.
Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the petitioner. I, of course, am in favor of this as well. And in reading your special permit request, I find it interesting you're saying that there are no barber supply companies close to Peabody, and you also explained that the service was once very popular and well-liked by working professionals, and there just isn't any offered. Could you, where do you get your supplies? It's very interesting to me. You know, you have the beauty supply store out in Danvers, I know that, but it's not a barbershop supplies. So where do you get your barbershop supplies? And you mentioned you're going to have it be a mobile sale. How are you going to go about that? Because I find that interesting that it's unique that there aren't any barber supplies, because there are plenty of barber shops around. So if you could just explain that to me, I'd be interested.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm very excited because of that. I used to be a hairdresser, actually, so I'm very familiar with both sides of the fence in this business. There's a lot of beauty, hairdressing supplies, salon-centric, Sally's. So the shelf space for barbers is like this. And what happened was, a while back, they kind of call it old school. They go into the barber shop and they bring the supplies to the barbers as a convenience, you know. And so, I don't know, that's what I wanted to bring back. So the mobile part of it would be that. So the storage would be in the basement, and I'd be going around on Wednesdays or outside of my own business hours. I'm still going to work the barber shop, and I'm going to offer razor blades, specific things to barbers that's just not on the shelves at Salon Centric, Sally's, things like that. Things I could get customized, things on the fly, so to speak. I used to work in a kitchen, you know, things quick. That's the convenience part of it, which is not being done right now. And nobody actually does delivery, and there's no specific barber supply in this area at all, within at least a 30-mile radius that I know of.
Well, good for you. I think it's a great idea, and I wish you the best of luck. It sounds like you've got a great marketing idea, and I wish you well.
Thank you. Councilor Gravel.
Thank you, Council President. I'd have to echo the words of other councilors that from the time that Paul's entered the community, he got involved with the chamber. He's gotten involved with just about every organization, nonprofits and charities to help out, always giving free haircuts and really just participating, you know, whether it's a pop-up pub or it doesn't matter. You see him there. He got involved in the Main Streets organization. So the great business that we want to keep helping here in the city. And if anybody's interested in his business plan, just go sit and get a haircut, and within 30 minutes you'll get the entire plan, including, you know, what he plans to carry, and you get to try some samples too. He'll throw some aftershave on you, even if you didn't get a shave. You'll leave there smelling great, and you know, it's a good thing. So congratulations, Paul. I'm sure this will pass, and I think you do a wonderful job.
Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to close the public hearing.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to approve the application from Paul McGinnity, 13R Main Street LLC, 13R Main Street, Puget, Mass. For a special permit seeking to allow the sales and storage of beauty supplies in the lower level of 13R Main Street, Puget, Mass. As filed in accordance with Section 1.5, 6.1, and 15.7 of the PV zoning ordinance. So moved.
Roll call vote.
Councilors Mitsoulas.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Charis.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Motion carries 10 to nothing.
Thank you, Council.
I'd like to move to item 4D on the agenda. The clerk will read the notice.
Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Peabody, acting as a special permit granting authority, will conduct a public hearing on Thursday evening, February 28, 2019, at 7:30 p.m. in the Franklin Wiggin Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. On the application from Boyd Cycles, 25A Walnut Street, Peabody, Mass. For a special permit to allow for the sale of motorcycles at said 25A Walnut Street, Peabody, Mass. Is filed in accordance with sections 4.2.5, 6.1, and 15.7 of the Peabody zoning ordinance. Peabody City Council, Councilor John G. Turco, City Council President.
Is the petitioner in the audience? Do we have the petitioner? Please come to the podium. You can state your name and address for the record and brief reason why you're here. Press the button, please.
My name is Ron Boyd. I have a business, Boyd Cycles, on 25 Walnut Street in Peabody, and I'm here to get a Class 3 dismantlers, repair, salvage motorcycles license. And sell motorcycles also.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the audience here to speak in favor of this petition? Anybody in the audience? Anybody in the audience to speak in opposition to the petition? Come right up, sir. Sir, if you could please state your name and address for the record. Yes, sir, the big button.
My name is Terrence Vaughn. I live at 8 Walnut Street, Unit 317. I'm only 77 years old. I think I represent a number of senior citizens. My wife and I put together a petition which we presented to the council. I presume you received it. And we were able to get a number of signatures from people in our building. And there are many, many seniors in Peabody House, which is adjacent to 8 Walnut Street at 18 Walnut Street. I grew up in Malden, so I'm somewhat of a native. I spent 15 years in Kennebunk, and I'm used to the sound of motorcycles. We had Bentleys nearby. Some of you may have heard of Bentleys. It's a famous gathering spot for motorcyclists. The sound of motorcycles is very, very loud, especially in the spring, the summer, and the autumn, and at the early hours of the morning. And by the early hours of the morning, I mean 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Motorcycles can be heard racing through the streets of downtown Peabody. I realize that Peabody is a crossroads for traffic all day long. But it's a wonderful town. We're very happy to be here. I love Boyd's, by the way. I think it's a wonderful, well-run business. I don't blame them for all the motorcycles that are in town. But there are a number of us, older folks, who just fear that there would be an increased volume of motorcycles in the town, and that increase would very much disturb us. And I hope that I have the sympathy of some of you, if not all of you. And thank you for your attention. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, sir. Councilman Matsoulis can receive the 3 late ad.
Yeah, I've got 3 late communications. One is in favor, and the other one is the gentleman that just spoke. And the other one has to do with snow removal, but motion to receive.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Anybody else in the audience to speak in opposition to this petition? Anybody else in the audience to speak in opposition? Councilor Matsoulis.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, let me tell you a little about Boyd cycles that I know about. I've seen that sign forever. I go by there every day, and I always thought they sold bicycles, not motorcycles. And I got a call 2 weeks ago from Mr. Boyd here, who I got to know a little bit. He's a native Peabody boy. He comes from Fountain Street, and his parents have been here for years also. And the thing that surprised me is when I walked into Boyd's, I was expecting to see a bicycle shop, and I saw these beautiful motorcycles, and they're not cheap, they're very expensive. And I said, I did not know that this existed in my ward. And I was prepared this evening. I thought this would be a nothing issue just to give him what permits he was looking for, because he's been there for 6 years. And to be in my ward and not get a complaint or hear anything about that company in 6 years, I would think if there was an issue on the noise that was coming out of his shop, I would have heard it already, and I'd have already put a stop to it. I am concerned about the letter I got here, and I do believe that there probably, I'm sure there is, because you've got a petition here talking about the noise level of motorcycles. But I can assure you they're not coming from his shop. I would have already heard it. I hear all the noise on that street. I'm on that street every day. I look for these things. and I look for people that that cause nuisances in my ward, because I do things about that. And when I saw the investment this gentleman made, and he wants to, he was telling me that he's outgrown his business, and he's looking to even expand or to buy a piece of property somewhere right in this location. And these are the type of businesses that we welcome in Ward 3. You know, I don't see any motorcycle gangs or people hanging around his place. I just see people coming in, bringing their motorcycles there and doing whatever business they do with Mr. Boyd. If I thought for a minute there was a problem with noise, especially with the residents across the street, I would have already done something about that. And for some reason or other, I just can't, especially the fact he's been there over 6 years. I just thought he had a great business, and I will turn this over to the rest of the council, see what they have to say.
Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. President. Welcome, Mr. Boyd. Can I call you Ron? Welcome, Ron. Ron, I guess maybe I wasn't paying attention, or it went by pretty quickly. You're here for a license. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do and what you're requesting different than what you do today?
My
Please.
main business is motorcycle repair. We're busy from late March to late October is our busy season. We're open from the hours of 8 to 5, and Saturdays a half a day. I'm looking to offset my winter income, because it's very slow in the business, by selling used motorcycles and remanufacturing salvage motorcycles. I need the license to purchase motorcycles from auction sites that are on out of state. So I need to have a license in the town so I can to buy used parts legitimately and sell used parts.
Thank you. And to Mr. Vaughn's point about motorcycle noise, if you don't open till 8, there's no noise that you're generating or any customers are generating prior to 8, correct?
Not that I know of, because I don't get there till 8 o'clock in the morning, but I can't control the traffic going down Walnut Street.
Oh, I'm not
at 2 in
talking
the
traffic. I'm talking customers that are in your shop. That's not happening from you.
Majority of my customers are like the age 35 to 60. They all ride touring bikes for the most part. They're weekend warriors, as they call themselves. They get out riding motorcycles. I just keep them in-tuned and repaired and safe to go on the road. I offer mass state inspections down there. So we do get a volume of bikes some days that I have to do inspection stickers. That's part of my business.
In any motorcycles that are brought in, do you run the cycle outside or do you run it inside your shop?
We run inside.
You run inside.
And we do take test drives.
Okay.
We have to test drive a majority of the bikes.
But it's not outside in the back parking lot racing and...
No.
Okay.
We go out the back end of the parking lot, if you're familiar with the property.
I am, yeah.
And we go out by the post office, we come out to the light, and then we head down Walnut Street, and we do our test run on the back road going to by the cemetery. That's where we test the bikes down off of there. It's not going to wake dead people up down there. So I try to be,
good point,
in reason with everybody.
And just to help mitigate Mr. Vaughn's concern, going forward, you'll make sure that there is no noise that you're generating, the unnecessary noise.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Been there for 6 years, so.
Yeah, and I drive by there like Councilor Matsoulis. I'm there almost every day. And the shop looks great.
Thank you.
And welcome. We're glad you're down there.
Appreciate it.
And I know you're going to be a good neighbor and help Mr. Vaughn out with the
sure.
concerns. Thank you.
Councilor Charest.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Vaughn, I go by your shop every single day. And every day I keep on saying, I'm going to stop in and look. I haven't had a bike for 20 years, and every year I keep on saying I'm going to buy another bike. So maybe this year might be the year that I can get back on the road. What type of bikes do you primary service?
Primarily Harley Davidsons. We do metric cruises and some sport bikes. Mainly Harley Davidsons. It's people don't like to go to the dealer.
Sure.
So they show their trust in me to provide service for them at a reasonable price. So I try to, I have a very large clientele base that, they're just happy with my services.
Well, and I got to tell you, my sister's been in the Harley Davidson business for over 35 years. She had multiple stores throughout the country, and she toured throughout the country doing shows. And I got to know a lot of these people who drove their bikes, and they certainly appreciate and certainly spend lots of money on their bikes. And again, I understand what the gentleman was saying about the noise. It gets quite loud when they run in full throttle and doing the unnecessary gear changes as they don't need to do. That's not what your business is. You're looking to sell. How many bikes are you looking? Is there a number on how many bikes, like a used car dealership, they have a number on how many cars they can sell? With this license through the president, or the Tim, is there a certain amount of bikes that he has to have number?
No.
So
as far as that number that he wants to have on
used car lots, they have a certain number they can't go over. Does
it's up to each site. It's up to the council what they want to condition him on, what he can fit in his shop.
How many bikes do you think you're looking to?
My showroom could probably only hold 5 motorcycles.
Yeah.
And most of the time I just take, I have a lot of senior riders that can't ride anymore, and I take their bikes on consignment trying to help them sell the bikes. And in turn, I will get to keep the customer, and I don't like to lose that customer out of my database.
Sure.
So probably like 5 or 6 bikes can fit in my showroom.
So, and you're probably, if you get 1 or 2 people in your showroom every day or every other day, it was probably a lot.
That's a real lot. We don't have any foot traffic at all.
Yeah. I certainly will support this as long as the council, the ward council is supporting it. I think he does. And again, this is one business that I love to see here in Peabody, and maybe someday I'll actually get my bike again. Thank you.
Councilor Rosignol.
Thank you, Mr. President. Along the same line of questioning from Councilor Charest, would you be amendable to putting a limit on the number that we did allow, for instance 5 or 6 as you stated? Now, will you have a storage facility? Obviously you're going to have a showroom out front which will have the 5 or 6. Do you have additional space for storage of bikes in anticipation of turnaround, or I'm assuming your service area is in the back, your showroom will be in the front. Will there be a storage area of motorcycles as well? Just make sure you...
I have like 3,600 square feet of shop space. So any overflow stays in the shop or out back during the day. Everything comes in at night. Nothing's out in the front. It's all in the back. So people drive by my shop, they don't even know that there's anything there.
Last question. As far as sales go, will customers be able to test drive the motorcycles, or would that be off limits?
Test driving motorcycles is a touchy subject because they're so valuable and you don't know if the person can actually ride the bike. You can't go to a Harley Davidson dealer and take a bike for a test drive. It's always been that way. So usually people that come into the shop are experienced riders. They know what they're looking for. And usually you would complete a sale, I would imagine, and they'd be off on their own.
The reason for my line of questioning is regarding the test drives is to the gentleman that was worried about noise. If you have somebody coming in, taking a test drive, coming back the next day, taking another test drive, and so on, I could see that being a noise issue, because now you have the same customer coming in daily just to try to find what bike is his, but if you eliminate that, then that would alleviate some of the noise concern.
Yeah, there's not going to be much test driving, trust me.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other councilors? Council Mitsoulas.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Vaughn, before I close the public hearing, I want to assure you that I would not issue a permit that I thought would upset your or your neighbors or your residents' way of life. If you know anything about me, one time there was a bar that gave us trouble on Walnut Street, and we closed that bar. Okay? And I'm not speaking just for myself, I'm speaking for this entire council. They have their eyes on Mr. Boyd here, but I don't think we have to worry, okay? And the minute I see that something is not right, you will have my phone number, and you could call me personally, and I will make sure we put a stop to it, okay?
Sir, if you'd like to, sir, excuse me, sir, if you don't mind, if you could come up to the podium and speak, just for the record.
Yes, sir. I appreciate what you had to say. Our concern is not with Mr. Boyd and his business. It's a well-run business. It looks good. We walk our dog by there every day, every single day. It's just the noise of motorcycles, especially at night, which Mr. Boyd has no control over, right into that. I thought it was a good opportunity to express the feeling we have about the large amount of noise that occurs, especially on weekends and in the early hours of the morning. It's very, very disturbing. People run these bikes right through town at high speeds. I suppose it's an issue for law enforcement. I don't know if the council has much control over that, but it's our concern, and I just wanted this opportunity really to express our concern about the noise. And I wish Boyd's all success in selling motorcycles. I've been in business myself, a movie theater in Massachusetts for 10 years. So I know what it's like to be in business, and I appreciate those who work hard in business. So our concern is the noise, and if the town or the city council can do anything to mitigate the amount of motorcycle noise, especially at night, we would be most grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. I just wanted you to know that we take this entire council takes your petition very serious. So, thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to close the public hearing.
All in favor, any opposed, it's a vote.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve a special permit for Boyd Cycles, 25A Walnut Street, to allow for the sale of motorcycles. So move.
On the motion, Council Rosno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Mitsoulas, would you be amendable to adding a restriction of 8 motorcycles for sale at one given time?
Yeah, I could do that. Just don't know how that works. How would that work, Tim?
We can add a condition that he can have Mr. Boyd can have no more than 8 motorcycles.
Okay,
offered for
all
sale
right,
at
so we'll
one
do
time.
it like we do the cars.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Okay. Are you okay with that? Okay. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Council Manning Martin on the motion.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in support of this. Nobody even knew you were there. You're quiet. You're looking to expand your business, to buy parts so that you can operate in your off-season in the winter, right? you have a very small space, and you said you had maybe 5 motorcycles, right? If you were, and you sell them, they're inside, and you said you have about 5, right? I'm not comfortable putting a restriction on this gentleman. He's been operating, he's not, we didn't have that restriction going in. He's coming in here to survive throughout the winters, and he's leaving with a restriction that he didn't have. And his hours of operation, he's done at 5 o'clock, and it certainly has nothing to do with the noise that the motorcycles that we're hearing complaints about on the weekends and the early evenings. I'm just not comfortable him coming to the council looking to survive in off hours to advance his business and prosper, and then leaving with a restriction. I'm not comfortable with that at all. I think that's the wrong direction to go in. So I won't support it if you do put a restriction on.
Councilor Rossignol.
Thank you, Mr. President. Currently, he cannot sell motorcycles. That's why he's before us, is so that he has the ability to sell motorcycles. Currently, he repairs motorcycles, so if I want to take my motorcycle to him, he'd be more than happy to fix it, and I get my motorcycle back. So the reason for the amended motion was so that there's a limit, so he can't just, and not even for Mr. Boyd, the petitioner, if he turns around and sells his business to somebody else and they want to just make it a factory, and all of a sudden they're selling 50, 60 bikes at a whack, I just don't think that that's appropriate for that space. So in my opinion, having a limit on what he can sell in the beginning, with he can, and if his business is thriving, he can certainly come back to the council and petition to expand from 8, which he can't sell any right now, and go further and sell 25 if he's really expanding on his business. Thank you.
Councilor Maniman.
Thank you for that clarification. Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Tim, motorcycle businesses in the city of Peabody, how many do we have? And do we limit the number of their sales?
Well, it's based on as far as motorcycle dealerships, I don't know of any in Peabody. It's just automobiles, as far as I know.
So then if we do this to him, if we do this to him, we're not affecting any other, we're not treating him any differently because there are no other motorcycle shops in the city of Peabody.
You aren't treating Mr. Boyd any differently from any other applicant that would come in if they were going to sell automobiles or motorcycles. It's the same license, and each business has its own set of conditions based on what they can fit there.
If we have no other motorcycle shops that we would be treating differently,
No,
then okay,
as
then
far
I
as
have
I
no
know.
problem. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. If nobody minds, I just wanted to make a point that in Mr. Boyd's application, he asks for 5 motorcycles on his permit. Councilor Matsoulis.
That's fine. Listen, this conversation's going to come up again at another date because he's got to come in for his Class 2 license. Okay. This evening, what we're voting on is just to allow him to apply for a Class 2 license. So our conversation is really moot right now. And when that issue comes up, we could put the restrictions or no restrictions. I mean, we could think about it and decide what we're going to do at that point. I made my motion, so move.
For clarification, the motion on the floor is to approve with 8, a limit of, with no limit?
No. That will come when he comes for the Class 2 motor vehicle license. Am I correct, Tim?
Well, you can do it on both.
Do it on both?
If you want to be, consistent with the special
Okay,
permit.
all right. We'll do it with both. I don't have a problem with putting 8 cycles. So move.
On the motion, roll call vote.
Councilors Matsoulis.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rossignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Charis.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0, 1 absent.
So while we have you at the podium, we're going to move to item 4E on the agenda. The clerk will read the notice.
Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Peabody will conduct a public hearing on Thursday evening, February 28, 2019, at 7:30 p.m. in the Franklin Wiggin Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. On the application from Boyd Cycles, 25A Walnut Street, Peabody, Mass., requesting a Class 3 motor vehicle license in accordance with Chapter 140, Section 58D at said 58 Walnut Street, Peabody, Mass. Peabody City Council, Councilor John G. Turco, City Council President.
Thank you. And Mr. Boyd, if you could just state your name and address for the record for this application.
Ron Boyd, business location is 25 Walnut Street, Peabody.
Thank you very much. Anybody in the audience here to speak in favor of the petition? Anybody in the audience here to speak in opposition to the petition? Seeing none, Councilor Mitsoulas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're all familiar with Mr. Boyd right now. Mr. Boyd, do you want to explain the Class 3 motor vehicle license that you're looking for? What is it you do?
Mainly for me, it's so I can buy salvaged motorcycles from auction houses and rebuild them.
Right.
And resell them under, you know, you have to get a salvage title, you have to go through a whole process to do it. And I did one over the winter, and the process of doing that, I had to go before the state police to have the bike re-inspected. And they said to myself, it'd be a lot easier if you had some type of license behind you to further on doing this, because it's, you got to jump through a lot of hoops to get it done, because they're trying to get rid of the insurance fraud and shops. So I'm trying to do it all the legal way, and that's why I need this license to make it in the further a lot easier for myself.
Well, that makes sense to me. And everything is done in your shop, right? I've been down that location. I've already said it. I've seen what he does, and he does do everything in his shop, so I don't see any noise coming out of there at all. I have no further comments, councilors.
Councilor Rossignol.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to Tim, and this is just because I'm not sure. It says on the petition motor vehicles, so in turn, let's say Mr. Boyd sells his business to company X, could they then turn around and sell cars out of that with that license?
Well, the special permit is specific to motorcycles, so I would say that it was automobiles, they'd have to come back for a special permit.
Councilor Mitsoulas.
Motion to close the public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor Mitsoulas.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve a Class 3 motor vehicle license to Boyd Cycles doing business at 25A Walnut Street. So moved.
Roll call vote.
Councilors Mitsoulas?
Yes.
Melville?
Yes.
O'Neill?
Yes.
McGinn?
Yes.
Rossignol?
Yes.
Manning Martin?
Yes.
Charis?
Yes.
Gould?
Yes.
Gravel?
Yes.
Turco?
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0, 1 absent.
Good luck, Mr. Boyd. Ladies and gentlemen, just a point of information prior to moving to item 4F. I think we all just got a text on our phones, and I just wanted for the record and for the television that Kamari Bunn, age 14, a Higgins Middle School student, did not return home today wearing a pink hat and jacket, blue pants. If anybody sees the young man or knows anything of his whereabouts, I'm sure the Peabody Police Department would appreciate any help they can get in that matter. And with that, we will move to item 4F on the agenda.
Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Peabody, acting as a special permit granting authority, will conduct a public hearing on Thursday evening, February 28, 2019 at 7:30 p.m. in the Franklin Wiggin Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. On the application from Ruggiero Family Memorial Home, Inc., 971 Saratoga Street, East Boston, Mass., and Tedisco Properties, LLC, 28 Jennifer Lane, Peabody, Mass., for a special permit seeking to use the basement and first floor of the existing building as a funeral establishment and to allow the second floor residential apartment to remain at 10 Chestnut Street, Peabody, Mass. As filed in accordance with sections 4.2.5, 6.1, and 15.7 of the Peabody zoning ordinance. Peabody City Council, Councilor John G. Turco, City Council President.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. For the record, my name's Ethan Bonzalides. I'm an attorney practicing law at 246 Andover Street in Peabody. And with me this evening is Mr. Pat Tedesco. He's manager of Tedesco Properties, along with Joseph Rosario, who's the owner of the Rosario Family Memorial Home. I do realize that the council's already very familiar with our property since we're situated directly across the street from City Hall. This property has been owned by the Murphy family for the last 40 or so years. It's a 2.5-story building. The building contains roughly 8,500 square feet of area, and it's situated on a lot that contains 11,750 square feet, and we are in the BC zoning district. The basement area in the first floor of this building contains several offices, conference rooms, reception areas, kitchens, and bathrooms, and the second floor contains one 2-bedroom apartment. Mr. Tedesco currently has this property under agreement. It's obviously subject to obtaining this evening's special permit. And as I stated in the application, the reason that we are here this evening is that Mr. Tedesco would like to lease the basement area in the first floor of this building, which contains a little over 6,000 square feet, to Mr. Ruggiero, who would then utilize that as a funeral home. If granted the permit, Mr. Ruggiero would do a total renovation to that portion of the building, meaning he'd basically gut the basement and the first floor and install all new floors, walls, ceilings, light fixtures, bathrooms, and he'll also upgrade the electrical and the plumbing utilities so that they're up to code. The basement area would contain our embalming room, a refrigeration unit, and a storage area. And the first floor would contain an office, an arrangement room, bathrooms, and a large room where we'd service our funerals and our wakes. Mr. Tedesco would retain control of the second floor, and he too would do a total renovation to that apartment with new walls, new floors, new ceilings, installation of a new kitchen, 2 full baths, and he also will upgrade the electrical and the plumbing. The apartment, when it's finished, will still only have 2 bedrooms. It'll have 2 full baths, a living room, and a kitchen. The exterior of the building is going to be painted. We'll be installing new windows where necessary. And we'd also like to make some enhancements to the architectural features of this building as it's historical. But any work that we do will be in accordance with the City of Peabody's downtown design standards. Mr. Ruggiero has been in the funeral business now for over 35 years. It's a small family-owned business. His current location is in East Boston, and they do business obviously as the Ruggiero Family Memorial Home. However, many of his clientele, they've moved to the North Shore area, and he would love the opportunity to be able to establish his second location here in our city. And parking's always an issue with a funeral home. The Ruggiero's East Boston location, like our Chestnut Street location, has limited parking. In fact, his location in East Boston only has 2 on-site parking spaces. However, he's been able to service his community there for over the last 20 years and been able to do so in a manner that has not created any parking or any traffic problems, as evidenced in the various letters of recommendation that are attached to the application. With respect to our property in Peabody, we do have on-site parking. There's on-street parking allowed on Chestnut Street, and we also have a municipal parking lot that's directly behind us on Foster Street. I believe there's also another municipal lot behind the courthouse, one next door to Dunkin' Donuts, and I believe one on Mill Street. In addition, Mr. Ruggiero provides complimentary valet parking at all of his wakes and his funerals. And he also provides a police escort for all of the funerals, regardless of its size, in order to avoid, really in order to provide a trouble-free progression. In addition, he also uses outside attendants at all funerals and wakes that assist with parking and to monitor that nobody's parking on anybody's private property or blocking anybody's entranceway or driveway. Today with funerals, most attendees go directly to the church. It's normally the immediate family and the close family members that will meet at the funeral home. And as the council knows, the abutting property to our right being the currently now the PBD Credit Union, which is on a smaller parcel of land than the petitioners, was used as a funeral home, I believe, for decades without any adverse effect of the surrounding area. We also have another funeral home on the other side of PBD City Hall over at 20 Church Street. That too is on a similar sized parcel as the petitioners. That's been in business for decades, and again without any adverse effect. Our city has a population of, I don't know, 54,000, maybe more, I'm not sure. However, we're serviced by only one funeral home company. That happens to be an excellent company. I've used them when I've had deaths in my family with my parents. But I would think that the inclusion of an additional funeral home company, especially with a city of our size, would be a welcome addition to our community. I do have Mr. Tedesco here and Mr. Ruggiero here with me this evening, and together we'll try to answer any questions that either the council or the public may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the audience here to speak in favor of the petition? Come right to the podium. Anybody to speak in favor, you can come to the podium. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Laurie Coleman. I reside at 578 Lowell Street. I am in favor of a second funeral home. I think it would be good for the city. Competition's a little healthy thing. I've actually been to services at the East Boston facility, and you want to talk issues with parking and traffic, and it was flawless. They're a very, very well-run business, beautiful establishment, and I don't see any reason that we couldn't have a second one in downtown. Traffic's always an issue. It doesn't matter what it is.
Thank you very much. Anybody else here to speak in favor of the petition? Please state your name and address for the record.
Pat Tedesco, 28 Jennifer Lane, Peabody, Massachusetts. So I'd like to speak in favor of it because obviously I'm a resident, 30 years. All my children, all my grandchildren live here in Peabody. I've known Joe for some close to 30 years. So I'm happy that he's hopefully be able to come up here and open a facility. But not only because I know Joe, because I'm a resident of Peabody, but I think that we all have the same goal, and I've been fortunate enough to purchase some property down in Peabody Square in the hopes that we can revitalize downtown Peabody. So my vision for a funeral parlor coming to downtown Peabody is because a funeral parlor brings new people to the city. People that have never visited Peabody will come down to downtown Peabody now, visit a funeral home. The majority of us that go to funerals, the funerals are usually between 4 and 8. We're leaving work, we're going to a funeral, and the first thing we look for is where are we going to go to eat after the funeral. I think with all the work we're trying to do in downtown Peabody, having restaurants open up, having pubs open up, having a brewery open up, that the business of a funeral home would only make us that much more further into what I believe all our future, that we're all looking for the future in downtown Peabody. Again, the funeral home, not only will it bring people for dinner, unfortunately, after a funeral, people look to gather. A family looks to have a collation. That would open up to restaurants here that people are going to have a funeral and hopefully go to visit one of our local restaurants. So because of that reason, I'm for it. Again, I believe we have 50, 60,000 people in Peabody. I do believe we should have a second funeral home, and people should have obviously a choice too. So it's like we can't have one restaurant in downtown Peabody and say no to everybody else. So regardless of what kind of business we're in, I'm not only in the construction business, I'm in the body business. And from the auto body business, and within 3 blocks of me, I have 10 body shops. It wouldn't be fair to me to say those other ones don't belong, but I do. So, again, I appreciate whatever the city council votes. Again, my heart is with Peabody. My family's here in Peabody, and we love to see downtown Peabody thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Disso. Anybody else here to speak in favor of the petition? Anybody here to speak in opposition to the petition? Please state your name and address for the record. Can you press the button, please? Thank you.
Sorry. My name is Joseph Paveo Jr. I'm a resident of 34 Elmwood Circle here in Peabody. I've been a lifelong resident. I'm also a licensed funeral director in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I'm employed by 2 funeral homes, and I'm an independent contractor at 4 other funeral homes. I'd be lying if I said I was opposed to another funeral home in this city. I think it's, you know, something that could definitely be used. It's a big city. It's a growing city. I do have, I guess you could say, a couple of questions or concerns, or looking for a little bit more transparency. One of the things that was said is that most people nowadays tend to go directly to the place of worship the morning of the funeral. I would have to actually disagree with that. I've been working in Peabody for about 10 years. Peabody is made up of diverse cultures, and a majority of people actually do come to the funeral home the morning of the funeral home, and of the funeral, excuse me. And most people nowadays tend to actually have a service in the funeral home as opposed to going to a place of worship. So that does change your parking dynamics, as far as you would have people parking to go into a procession, to go to a committal, or then you'd have people parking just to come to the wake, to then leave and not go to the committal. Also, on Monday at the zoning board, a statement was made that 35 cars could be fit into that off-street parking. As my father used to say growing up, show me. I think that's something, you know, that is in writing, as opposed to something that could be proved, is 2 different things. Also, according to CMR 239 3.6 in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, any licensed funeral home establishment established after December 1st, 1949 must make removals of all dead bodies into said establishment concealed from public view. Again, I haven't seen anything since Monday. As far as Monday, I did not hear of anything like that or seen anything. Again, I am not opposed to another funeral home in Peabody. I have a couple of questions, and whatever the outcome, I do wish Mr. Tedisco and Mr. Ruggiero the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else to speak in opposition? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Kevin Donovan. I reside at 151R Lowell Street. I'm also the manager of the Peabody Municipal Federal Credit Union. We are located at 12 Chestnut Street. We're an immediate abutter to the petitioner's property. I am here speaking on behalf of the Board of Directors and the membership at large to cite our concerns that we have to bring another operating funeral home into this immediate neighborhood. Lest we forget, councilors, that for 50 years prior to 2006, when the Conway Funeral Home moved from our location at 12 Chestnut Street to Lynn Street, we were at, from 1998 to 2006, located at 15 Chestnut Street. I can speak personally from observing what happened in this immediate neighborhood, to Chestnut, to Church, to Lowell, when there was a funeral. And at the time of funeral, queuing up to travel to a place of worship or a final resting spot caused Chestnut Street to become extremely congested. Indeed, that may have been for a short period of time until the procession was off. In the meantime, there could have been, probably was, needs for emergency vehicles to get to this area. Having said that, bringing this congestion back into the area, only having a certain number of off-site or off-street queuable parking at that present location is going to cause more impact on the area for the public parking spaces that are barely available to us now, when we are open, the church, the school, City Hall. I know these are during the day funerals. Wakes, on the other hand, are at night, most. I know it was said by Mr. Paveo that there is an increase in in-house services, so let us say that, obviously he would know, that you're going to have that combination of wake service during the day as well in the funeral home. Well, being an immediate abutter with only 8 parking spaces head in from Church Street, we are further concerned that our parking lot will be utilized by visitors, mourners, to the funeral home. It doesn't matter if it's a wake or a funeral. Human nature is going to cause people to pull into a parking space that's the easiest to get into and easiest to get out of. We have 2,100 plus members at the credit union that come, not all, many do come to visit us to perform their financial services that we offer. So if nothing else that would come out of this, I would like to say we want to be good neighbors. We're not objecting in general to a funeral home. We just don't feel that this is the proper location for it because of what is going on or hoping to be going on down in the city. We talk about all the parking spaces that are available. As more and more businesses come into the downtown area, more and more parking spaces are going, parking spaces are going to disappear. So there's going to be a greater impact on us that have private parking spots. If this council could consider anything to be added to an approval that would help protect our private parking lot by the petitioner during their services. Because frankly, I can't do it. You know, we only have 5 employees, and it's not something that I can do. We want to be good neighbors. We want to be able to make this available. We also have a tenant, so after our regular business hours are over, that tenant has his clients come in. So our operation is going to run from 9 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock at night. Most every night of the week except the 4th Sunday. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I appreciate any consideration that you may be able to give to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Donovan. Is anybody else in the audience to speak in opposition? Anybody in the audience to speak in opposition? Seeing none, Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, move to receive late communication from PBD Municipal Federal Credit Union dated February 27th, 2019, and refer it to this hearing. So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I think, as you heard from some of those that spoke in opposition, and I have heard from several that are not here this evening, area residents, there is clearly concern about parking, and I think that the applicant fully recognizes that. All reports that I have of the operation that they currently run in East Boston, they're in a very compact area with extremely limited parking and run an efficient operation with respect to getting people in and out. I've heard that a number of times, as we heard here again tonight from Ms. Coleman. So while I'm very sensitive to the parking issues that have been raised and the congestion issues and so forth, the way I view this is that this is a business use in the BC zoning district, and under our zoning there is no parking requirement. So visitors to this establishment are able to park on the street and in municipal parking lots in the BC as would customers for any other allowed commercial use in the BC. The only dimensional relief that the petitioner required was obtained. They sought relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals, and that space requirement deals with the space needed to form vehicular funeral processions, the procession itself, but not parking per se. So they, as I said, they sought and received that relief at the ZBA hearing earlier this week. So that's been vetted. With respect to the issue that came up, the Massachusetts law CMR 239, that's a legitimate concern, no doubt. However, in discussing with the applicant's attorney, they are fully aware that they need to be in compliance with that. I suppose that an argument could be made that that would reduce the amount of space that they had available for the off-street area for the formation of vehicle funeral processions. However, that ship's kind of sailed. They got that relief on Monday night from the ZBA, so that would have been a more appropriate place to have that, to delve deeper into that issue. There's really not much more that I feel we need to do on that, because that's a state law that will be addressed by the state as a function of the licensing process that funeral directors need to comply with before this operation would open. So I believe the applicants, Mr. Tedesco, Mr. Ruggiero, are committed to making this endeavor work in the best mutual interest of themselves, the city, and the downtown. I think Mr. Tedesco's commitment to the downtown has been very consistent and noteworthy, speaks for itself. I've been actively engaged with the applicant's attorney and proposed a number of conditions to which the applicants are fully agreeable. Most of these are to address concerns that were raised here tonight, some of which are in the communication from the credit union, others that were provided to me verbally. Again, this was vetted. Others of these conditions deal with feedback that were provided by the various departments, DPW, health, and so forth. So I am in support of this application, and at this time I would defer to other councilors for comment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor Gravel. Councilor Gravel.
Thank you, Council President. First of all, I think there were some well thought out comments there, about particularly as it pertains to parking. I know I'm also a property owner in downtown Peabody, and I have a parking lot, and we were there. We still own the building, but we were there for a number of years. And during that whole time, I can empathize with what Kevin Donovan was saying in terms of the struggle of maintaining that parking lot for your employees and for your guests. Nobody likes to be the parking police running out and getting violators to move their cars so your employees can park, or that your customers can come in. And I've been recently approached by, and the parking problem will come. I totally agree with that. As you get more businesses, we're going to have more issues associated with parking. Frankly, I think that's part of the evolution of getting a parking garage somewhere. But I've already been approached by Olio for their parking, because they want to have a venue that stages 150 people for an event. They have no place to park. I'm sure that as Next-Mex and Granite move up there, that will become the convenient drop-off parking spot as well. So I fully get it, and I think in this particular situation, I have seen in Salem on the I forget the name of the funeral home, but they're right down the street from the Hawthorne Hotel. They have portable signs that they put on the side of the road, no funeral parking, so that they protect the Hawthorne parking lot. And it seems to be pretty effective. They also seem to have a lot of police patrolling during the services, so that if you do decide to drop your car there, and you might find it no longer there when you get out or with a ticket. I empathize with the credit union only from the perspective of, because they are a private entity, they won't get the protection of the police on property, because police can't enter private property to remove cars or ticket. But I think, you know, some signage would be a heck of a good thing, portable signage that you put out during the service and you take away when the service is done, to sort of help the situation and protect those properties that should not have funeral parking in there at the time. But overall, I think, you know, it's positioning in terms of close to a church, and, you know, it was formerly a funeral home. It's a hard one to say no on in terms of its use, particularly if the primary concern is traffic and parking. I think there are ways to accommodate that, and I think it's going to involve the owners doing something with signage and something with police. So I intend to support it, but I would like that. I know Council McGinn is probably have some conditions on this, so I'm sure that we'll work it out. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councilors? Council Melville.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Through you to the petitioner, there's going to be a police escort for every procession? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, there'll be police escort for every funeral. And better than signage, Dave, is not only do we have valet parking, but we also have outdoor attendants that are out there to monitor where people are parking, so we don't want anybody blocking off any residential or business driveway or to park in their parking lot. It's a funeral home. You're not going to have activity 7 days a week. There's going to be plenty of days where nothing's going on. And I'm sure the credit union customers will use our parking lot for parking. We don't have a problem with that.
Also, with regard, you just actually mentioned valet. You're going to have valet, and they're going to utilize the parking lot on the side, or are they going to use the?
We're going to utilize whatever spaces we can find.
Okay, all right. I figured as much. I've been to a funeral at the petitioner's location. It was valet. They're at an intersection. It's not a particularly easy area to operate in and out of. But the other question I had was, you have tenants that will be rental tenants on the second floor, and they would have off-street parking specific to their purposes that they'd be able to get to through the parking lot. Like,
we're not going to say these 2 spaces are yours, but obviously they'll be able to use our parking lot.
Because I did hear that there were going to be 36 vehicles. Is it that square, that parking lot on the adjacent to the building that this number came from, or where did that number come from?
When it comes to the procession, and I have a plan that can show it, the way Mr. Ruggiero would do it is people that are going to a funeral, we're creating a procession, and we want to try to keep them off of Chestnut Street, is you back the vehicles into the property.
Okay.
And I've got enough room to back a minimum of 30 and I think 34.
Okay. Okay. I guess with one of my main concerns was the procession in the downtown area with the fire station where it's located, with that being an interest from people for ambulances going towards Salem Hospital, whatnot. I was always concerned about blocking or what that was for. But with a police escort, I think that mitigates some of the issues, as I think everybody in the procession would know who's in charge at that point. So thank you very much, Mr. President.
Any other councilors? Council McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President, and through to Council Melville, because of the police involvement in this was new to me. I have spoken with the police department about their ability to support this request, and they're fairly confident they'll be able to do it. Of course, these are paid details, so given sufficient notice, they felt confident that they would consistently be able to support the request. Thank you, Mr. President. Move to close the public hearing.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to approve the application from Ruggiero Family Memorial Home, Inc., 971 Saratoga Street, East Boston, Mass., and Tedesco Properties, LLC, 28 Jennifer Lane, Peabody, Mass., for a special permit seeking to use the basement and first floor of the existing building as a funeral establishment and to allow the second floor residential apartment to remain at 10 Chestnut Street, Peabody, Mass., as filed in accordance with sections 4.2.5, 6, and 15.7 of the Peabody zoning ordinance with the following conditions. With respect to parking and funeral processions, the applicant agrees that complimentary valet parking will be provided at all wakes and/or services unless permission has been obtained from private parking lot owner. Funeral home establishment employees will make it known to individuals attending services that parking in private parking lots, including but not limited to the parking lot at 12 Chestnut Street, is not permitted. Vehicular access and egress from such private parking lots shall not be blocked. Parking for the residential use shall be accommodated on the property, except in cases where vehicles are needed for services in the following morning. Limousines, van, and hearse shall not be parked on the property overnight. A paid Peabody police escort will be provided at all funerals to assist in the formation of vehicular funeral processions and to mitigate funeral procession vehicular traffic flow interference with normal traffic circulation on adjacent streets. Number 2, all deliveries will be accommodated on the property, and all dumpster and other waste pickups will be accommodated on the property. Number 3, the proposed dumpster should be enclosed to ensure that no trash or debris will blow into the Galwaith Brook. All outside work is subject to 310 CMR 10 and Chapter 32 of Local Wetlands Ordinance. Number 4, applicant understands and agrees that, as required by zoning 5.2.2, the Peabody Downtown Design Standards Main Street Sub-District will apply. The property is located in the National Register of Historic Places Peabody Civic Center Historic District, and the applicant will consent to all exterior renovations being reviewed and approved by the Peabody Historical Commission. No apparatus, including but not limited to antennas or satellite receiving dishes, shall be placed on any roof or facade of the structure where visible from adjacent streets or properties. No window air conditioners or similar apparatus shall be installed in the windows of the structure, and all HVAC equipment will be installed in such a way that it is not visible or screened from sight from adjacent streets or property. The applicant agrees that project shall be subject to construction review and subject to the recommendation of the construction review committee. Landscaping shall be maintained in accordance with zoning sections 5.2.8 and 10.5.3 C2. All sewage discharge generated from the proposed funeral home shall comply with the City of Peabody's sewer use regulations dated January 23rd, 1969, as amended through January 28th, 1998. And number 6, business hours of operation are 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Sunday. So moved.
On the motion, roll call vote.
Councilors Mitsoulas.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Charist.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0, 1 absent.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
If nobody has an opposition, we're going to take a 2-minute recess. Thank you, councilors. I'm going to move to item 5, reports on committees. Councilor Charest.
timed that perfectly for me to sit down. Thank you, Councilor Turco, President. Yes, just give me one moment. Tonight we had the Public Service Subcommittee meeting. We had 3 subjects on the agenda. The first one by Councilor Turco was to speak about block parties being able to pick up their barrels, to have a discussion on picking up their barrels at the DPW building. And there's a lot of discussion there going back and forth. It's going to go back to DPW to come up with some ideas and some thoughts of can we utilize a pickup for these barrels instead of the men delivering to the houses. Right, that was just a report, yes. The other one was the discussion. We had Mr. Delp here doing a presentation, an outstanding presentation, on the flooding that he has in his neighborhood. Also with him was the Wiggin family. It was very enlightening about what they've been doing on their own. We had Director of DPW here to speak about going on in the future of some work that's going to be done. That's work in progress. It's depending on the budget. There is going to be a meeting on March 21st to discuss this further. At the meeting, I should have said in the beginning, it was myself, Councilor Masulis, Councilor O'Neill, Councilor Rosenall, Councilor Manning Martin, Councilor Gould, Councilor Turco, I think I got everyone, right? And Councilor McGinn, sorry. The third discussion I had brought up about having a portal on the city website for residents to be able to report areas there's difficulty with snow removal. If a neighborhood streets weren't done properly or missed, they would be able to go on a portal, report it, and the director on duty at that time can see it in real time and be able to get vehicles out there. And that is will be helpful for some councilors who are not able to get a phone call if they're away or and their phones are not working. I know with me at work, I'm not always able to get calls because of the cement building I work in. So this will be able to utilize that function and get these problem areas addressed in a quicker manner. And that is all I have tonight. Thank you.
No, just, you've heard the report of progress. Let's move to Committee of the Whole. The Committee of the Whole was held with regard to the mayor's salary. The mayor had submitted a request to the council that he does not desire or would not like to receive a salary. We obliged him with that through a motion from Councilor McGinn, which was voted unanimously, and I believe all 11 councilors were present. 10 councilors were present for that vote. Yes, on the motion.
The motion was, I believe, to move to take no action with respect to the mayor's salary for fiscal year 2020.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. And we could move to Councilor Gravel for Finance.
Thank you, Council President. This evening there was a meeting of the Finance Committee which started promptly at 7:15. And present for the committee were myself as chair, Councilor Gould, Councilor Manning Martin, Councilor McGinn, and Councilor Rossignol. And for one part of the meeting, we asked Councilor Turco to stand in for Councilor Manning Martin, who had to recuse herself due to a family relationship on the subject matter. The topics of discussion for the evening were the transfer of funds for police and for fire. These are in response to settlement of contracts and the issuance of retro pay to bring the contracts in line. So the first vote that was taken was to Oh, and by the way, all other councilors except Council Sasslaw were in attendance. The first vote that was taken was pertaining to the police department. A motion was made to move from salary reserve 113,25,1925, an amount of $105,000, and transfer it to police salaries, account 100, 2100, 51,110 for a similar amount. And adjoining that motion was a motion to transfer from the budget reserve category 113,20, 57,410, an amount of $275,000 to police overtime, account number 100, 2100, 51,130, an amount of $275,000 for a total of $380,000 of transfers. So moved.
On the motion, roll call vote.
Councilors Melville,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Manning Martin, Charis,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Gravel,
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0, 2 absent.
The second topic of discussion, again, was as it pertained to the fire salaries. Likewise, their contract has been settled, and this money is required to fund the portion of the contract that is required for this year. And the motion was made to move $195,000 from the salary reserve account 11320 51,925 to fire salaries account number 100 2200 5110 51110 in an amount of $220,000, and then the also to move funds from the budgetary reserve account number 100 1320 57,410 in the amount of $210,000 to the fire overtime salary account, which is account number 100 2200 51,130. The total movement is $405,000 from one to the other. So moved.
On the motion, roll call vote.
Councilors Melville,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Charis,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Gravel,
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0, 3 absent.
And that was it, Council President. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Motions, orders, and resolutions. Councilor Melville.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Under suspensions of the rules, I would make a motion to receive item 9D and set up a public hearing.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Under suspensions of the rules, I would make a motion to receive and set up a public hearing for item 9E.
That's for both.
Both, yeah, for both.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I just wanted to bring up, I had made a motion in the late spring of last year for the city to reach out to the Attorney General's office about there's an opportunity. They do an event where they'll have a city or town, or it can be regionally as well, come in and they discuss public meeting law, different issues that have come up in the past, best practices for cities and towns, boards, elected boards, appointed boards, to avoid. And through the assistance of Chris Ryder in the mayor's office and the cooperation of the mayor's office, a date has been selected. It's Tuesday, April 9th. Tentatively, it starts at 5:30 and ends at 7:30. And I think it might start a little early. There might be some stuff going on before that as well, but it will be from 5:30 to 7:30 here at the Wiggins Auditorium on April 9th. So I would just suggest if it would, I go to a public meeting law event every year. It's extremely helpful, and it's something I think would benefit not only the council but the appointed boards. And most of us, we're not attorneys, but this is not what we do every day. And whether you intend to make a mistake or just based on the complexities of certain parts of the law, I think it's a really helpful thing for not only ourselves as elected officials, but also for those people that we vote on and appoint to different places. So I just wanted to make sure everybody got that on the schedule, And I would want to thank the mayor's office, the attorney general's office, and I hope everybody can make it. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. While I have you, if you wouldn't mind receiving items 9A and 9C for Councilor Sasslaw.
Under suspensions of the rules, I would move to receive items 9A, entertainment license renewal in the game 535 Lowell Street. Please approve, subject to all papers being in order.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Under suspensions of the rules, I would move to approve the renewal for junk dealers license, Eco 8 ATM LLC 210 Andover Street with all pending all papers being in order.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
No further motions.
One more, 9C.
9C. Okay. Move to approve, under suspensions of the rules, move to approve item 9C, Class 2 motor vehicle license, 2019 renewal, Tri-State Auto Sales, 249 Newberry Street, with all papers being in order.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. No motions this evening.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, move to receive item 7B. So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Yeah, Mr. President, this is a resolution or a communication from His Honor the Mayor that deals with a resolution to change the bottle return law that would to include nip bottles. And I'm not sure if you've been following kind of news on this in other communities. There's been a couple of approaches taken to this. One has been to ban them altogether. The other has been this approach, which is to roll them into the bottle bill as a means of getting them off the street. There is no bigger pet peeve to me than these nip bottles, which are, I literally pick them up every single day in the downtown area, and I've been very hopeful that we could get behind something here to try to address this in some way. So I'm very pleased that the mayor has provided this communication to us in the form that he has, so that we could make our voice known to the legislature. And with that, I would move to endorse the resolution that asks the legislature and the governor to advance and approve such a measure in 2019. And the full text of the measure and the resolution is attached. I'm going to waive the reading of that, but it's as attached to the communication from His Honor the Mayor dated February 21st, 2019. So moved.
On the motion, Councilor Melville.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm going to have to recuse myself for this. I've been involved on both sides, from the corporate, with regards to the companies that are regulated, and through my job at the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission. So just so I'll have to recuse myself from this particular vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. On the motion, roll call vote.
Councilors O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Charis.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0, 3 absent.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, move to receive item 8A and set up a public hearing. So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, move to receive item 8B. So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item 8B is the latest version of the proposed zoning amendment for the residential overlay district that was addressed extensively in Chairman Gould's subcommittee on industrial and community development. There were a number of iterations that played out through that process, the last of which was to incorporate a couple of ideas that came up at the last meeting. We decided to move it out of committee and move it directly to the full council, so that's where we are now. I've personally, I think all councilors have now had an opportunity to read the suggested adjusted language that Mr. Bellavance has provided. I'm comfortable that he's addressed the remaining couple of concerns that were raised. So with that, I would move that we send the current draft of this proposed zoning amendment to the planning board for a recommendation. So moved.
On the motion, all in favor? On the motion, Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have questions on it. So I can ask you them if you want to answer them for me.
Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to Councilor Manning Martin. I'm not sure that I mean, you have questions on the changes?
Talking about 8B?
Councilor McGinn.
Yeah, we're talking about 8B. All of 8B came out of industrial and community development. And it was pretty thoroughly vetted through the committee's work. I believe,
right,
Councilor Gould, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it came out with a unanimous recommendation to advance it, subject to a couple of remaining changes. So the only adjustments to what was vetted through the work of the committee were on the second page of the document, subsection E, that you'll see some language underlined there. So it's that was added, and at the bottom of that page, section K, that underlined language, it was that was added. Beyond those two changes, everything is as it was last discussed in subcommittee.
Right, I guess through you, Mr. Chairman, to Councilor McGinn. It was in subcommittee, so it wasn't a full committee, and then it always goes to full committee where we have a further discussion and vote. So I was not, I was present, but I was listening, and I wasn't a member of the subcommittee, so that's just normally not how it works. So I had prepared to have, it go to full committee, and because I have further questions. And subcommittee was a learning curve, certainly for me, in the process. So I had hoped to have a second tutorial and have Mr. Bellavance answer some questions.
Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to Councilor Manning Martin. I certainly don't want to shut down any opportunity you have to get your questions addressed. I just, from a standpoint of process, there would be further opportunity because the process would take this to the planning board for a recommendation. That's a public hearing, and then back to the city council for another public hearing. So there's two more public hearings before anything would ultimately be changed if it was looked upon favorably by the full council at that point. So again, I'll defer to the best judgment of the council how they want to address it at this point, but I just want to remind everybody for clarification process perspective that there will be further vetting of this in the public hearings, two public hearings. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor Manning Martin.
And sticking to the process, it was also stated repeatedly at subcommittee that it would go back to the full council for a vote, for review and a vote. And then, because I know that Councilor Gould have repeated that several times, that was the process. So that's the process that I was under the impression that we were going to follow. So we're just not following a process that we articulated moving forward.
Councilor Gould, can I defer to you on that for one moment? If as Chair of Industrial and Community Development, do you have an opinion on this that you'd like to share?
I don't recall exactly, Mr. President, how that wording was, but I know we talked about there being two more opportunities to discuss it in public hearings. I'm amendable to doing whatever the council wants to do. We want it, Tim, what do you suggest?
It's up to the council at this point. You can either hold it, refer it to the committee of the whole, I mean, put it back into INC.
I'd prefer we don't go back to IEC, but I think we do the committee of the whole.
You want to
If-
refer it
if
to the
that's what
committee of the
will
whole for one last review before sending to the planning board. I mean, it's up to this council.
Council Gould, is that in the form of a motion? No, not yet. Oh, there's a motion on the floor, my apologies. Councilor Gravel.
Yeah, I was just gonna say there's a motion on the floor, but, I thought, and again, that we had voted it was reported out of committee with changes, and there were a number of changes that were made, and the request was to have those changes, you know, reported out with those changes put in writing and so that we knew all of those pieces. Frankly, I have no concern sending it to the planning board and getting their opinion, and then at the same time having it reviewed again by the council. I just think we should do whatever it takes to expedite the process so that it gets taken care of, but not necessarily, you know, bifurcate the process. And I don't think we are. I think it came out of committee, it was voted, technically it's out of committee. And then the next step for it was to go to the planning board, but the idea was that we wanted to see the language because there were a lot of edited changes during the subcommittee meeting that people wanted to be sure that those changes were input. So I don't see anything that stops us from sending it.
Councilor Rossignol.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to Councilor Manning Martin. The questions that you have, could they be answered by the subcommittee, or would you prefer Mr. Bellavance?
Oh, I would suspect that he's the subject expert. I don't think that, because if they weren't asked at subcommittee, then I don't think the subcommittee members would have the expertise. But, and just as an example, on 6.16.2 under purpose of residential overlay, and this is just one example, G, it says, it references nothing in section 6.15 shall be deemed to supersede, and this is actually 6.16. So it's it's a typo, but that's just something I picked up on. And I know that he had mentioned at subcommittee that 6.15 was, I think, referencing the mill overlay. So that's a typo, and it's referencing something that we actually even, it's another whole overlay that we move forward on. So that's wrong. But that's just an example quickly here tonight, because I don't want to stall this up any further. But I had a lot of questions that I needed better explanation on that weren't asked at subcommittee. I wasn't a member of subcommittee, and it was stated repeatedly that it was going to go back to the full council. I'm not looking to slow things up. I'm in favor of this residential overlay. I just wanted clarification on some of the language, and I wanted to feel comfortable with what it is.
Thank you. Councilor McGinn.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Through you to Councilor Manning Martin. Yeah, again, just to reiterate, I have no desire to prevent you from getting any of your questions fully answered, so we'll figure out a way to make sure that gets done. But, you know, this, in terms of the suggestion that we're doing something that's out of line with the process, I mean, it came out of committee just like most things come out of committee to get voted on for the full council, so that would be tonight. But again, no problem with finding a way here to make sure that you get all your questions fully answered. And with that, I would withdraw my motion to send it to the planning board, and we'll figure out to where the proper place to refer it is. As through you, Mr. President, to Councilor Gravel, just a point of clarification. We had multiple meetings at Industrial and Community Development, and you're right. I wanted to make sure that people, other councilors, saw what the large amount of changes that were done from one meeting to the next, and those were incorporated in the review that we did on the February 14th meeting. So those, I think I'm seeing some heads nodding here. People remember that. The majority of that language was assimilated and reviewed at the February 14th meeting, and Mr. Bellavance was here to explain the nature of those changes. So just for clarity, the only difference between what we saw on February 14th and what we're seeing here tonight is the 2 points that I mentioned earlier, which is on the second page, the underlined language on item E and item K. Just so that hopefully we're just for a level setting perspective that we're all looking at the right revision control, for lack of a better term. So, Mr. President, I've withdrawn my motion, and I'll defer to. I think I'll defer to Councilor Manning Martin to if she wants to make a motion in terms of the best way to address the moving forward.
Councilor Manning Martin.
I can ask the questions now, and if you feel, those present feel that they can answer it, then because that's what I was expecting to do here tonight. It was back into this full committee, so that's what I was expecting. So I can ask those things now. If you want to move forward, you might be able to just quickly answer them, and we can move forward. So that wouldn't stop the process, and then from here you could forward it to the planning board.
Thank you, Councilman Martin. I'd be amenable to seeing who could answer your questions. I think that stems from what Councilor Rosignol had asked. If we're able to answer, hopefully we can. But yes, please. Thank you.
Yes. So good suggestion, Councilor Rosignol. Okay. So if I may, Councilor Turco. Yes? You want me to? Okay.
Yes, you have the floor.
Okay. Under 6.16.2 C, minimize visual and functional conflicts between residential and non-residential uses within and abutting the district. The billboard that's there, where is the billboard with respect to where these new structure residentials are going to be? Does anyone know?
If I may, just give just a reference. In our packet, we have the minutes, so some of these answers may be in our packets that we had tonight. So if you want to, just a point of reference that if you look at all the report outs by Councilor Gould is in this packet, so you may get some of your questions answered by looking into the packet in the part of our packet tonight. Thank you.
So,
thank you, Councilor.
The reason I raised the billboard is simply because I think it's going to become an issue depending upon where it is, when the residential units are constructed, because it is a digital, and you know that the digital will be glaring into people's windows, and it won't be able to remain. And I think just Councilor Gravel may have been on the council at the time, maybe Councilor Gould as well, when that billboard went up. It's not zoned for it. It's not even zoned for a special permit. It's there with, I don't even know what paperwork is behind that being there, because the mall wanted it, so the mall got it, but it wasn't zoned for it. So moving forward, when the residential units go there, I'm wondering if we're going to have any legal issues with it being erected, or does it need to come down or whatever. So I just want to put that out there for discussion. So that would fall under 6.16.2C, because you'll have conflicts between the residential and the non-residential with that billboard. I pointed out on 6.1.62G, it references the wrong ordinance, it says 6.15. That should be corrected to say 6.16. Could someone explain to me under 6.16.3 district regulations, A, it references new structures only. So does that mean, it says residential use shall be by special permit in the residential overlay district as shown on the map for new structures only. So it seems self-evident, and it may seem like a, but I just wanted to make sure. So all the buildings that are there now are not going to be renovated into residential? It's just new structures only?
Councilor McGinn, if you'd like to answer the question.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll give it my best shot. So that's my understanding, Councilor Manning Martin, that this was not intended to be something that would allow for the retrofit of existing structures into residential. It contemplates any new development, which would be new structures. And I'll take a shot at your first question as well, which is that I do think that the billboard that you make reference to is on the parcel that was identified on one of the maps. So I think that's an accurate observation on your part. I guess the only point I would make on that is that all of this needs to come back for a special permit. So if the council at the time that was evaluating the special permit thought there was a visual conflict there between those, it could be addressed through the special permitting process. That would be my best guess as to where the proper place to do that would be, rather than requiring it be removed or anything like that. I don't know that the recourse would exist at that time to get that existing billboard removed, but the concern could be addressed through the special permitting process.
Okay, and I was surprised that it was new structures only, because why wouldn't some of those properties want to be retrofitted if it fell on the overlay? So that just kind of was odd to me, that it was new structures only. So, okay, and down to G, the special permit granting authorities shall have the ability to waive dimensional requirements under this application in consideration for the applicant's support of public projects. What does that mean?
Councilor McGinn.
Thank you. I think the reason that's there, Councilor Manning Martin, is that typically dimensional relief is obtained only from the Zoning Board of Appeals, unless otherwise stated. So I think the idea here is that this would be one-stop shopping, for lack of a better term, that the dimensional relief, if it was the will of the council at the time, the council could waive dimensional requirements for a good project without it having to go to the ZBA. I think that's the intent of the language.
Okay, so we'll be taking on the role of the ZBA just with this residential overlay.
Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, that's correct. This is all unique to with the overlay district, right?
Okay.
So it doesn't. I think I understand your concern. There is no slippery slope here to take the council into other dimensional issues that are definitely the purview.
Thank you.
Of the ZBA.
That was my concern. And then consideration for the applicant's support of public projects. Is that
Councilor McGinn.
like arbitrarily we choose what's a good project or a support of a public project? I don't understand what that means.
Well, I think.
Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, so I think that there are judgment calls made on a fairly regular basis by the council, and often that is based on public support for a project. So I think all that's saying is that the special permit granting authority, which is the city council in this case, would have the ability to do that if they felt that the public support was there to make that change. I think that's really
that just seems to be a little loose for me, that language.
Council meeting, Martin, if you don't mind, I believe the clerk was going to address one of your questions, item G, 6.16.2G, where it references 6.16 instead of 6.15.
That is a typo, Council. I think originally this overlay district was 6.15. It was changed to 6.16 because the mill overlay took over 6.15, so it is just a typo.
Thank you. And also, I believe Councilor Gould that wanted to answer one of your questions.
I'm just worried that, Councilor Manning Martin making some great points, and Councilor McGinn's given it his best shot at answering. I'm wondering if we're best served by making it an agenda item in our next meeting. I don't want to stop the discussion, but I want to make sure we're getting correct answers and that you're satisfied with the answers, Councilor Manning Martin.
Councilor Gould, and I'm told by the clerk that we have time on our next agenda, and if somebody would like to make the motion, I would agree. Maybe we could do a committee of the whole prior to the next meeting.
Yeah, and we can have Mr. Bellavance here to answer any questions.
Kurt Bellavance there. Councilor McGinn.
I just would like to fully endorse that idea.
It's not fair to you, Councilor McGinn, to be the answer.
Yeah, no,
You don't want to be the community development director?
No, I don't want to be the community development director. Or, you never know. Councilor Gravel careers sometimes take a strange twist.
I'll make a motion to have to have this looked at again and as an agenda item, committee of the whole, and request Mr. Bellavance to be here. So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Could somebody please receive, I'm sorry, we were in the middle of motions, orders, and resolutions. I forgot where we were. Councilor Manning Martin. Oh, Councilor Rossignol had the floor. Nope, Councilor McGinn had the floor. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have also lost track of where I'm at, so we're all in the same boat. Mr. President, no further motions. Thank you.
Councilor Rossignol.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, I have no motions, but I just want to take this opportunity just to make a couple of announcements / edification for the council. I want to congratulate the girls hockey team. Last night they beat Winthrop. First time the girls hockey team has ever won a playoff game. So I want to just say congratulations to the girls hockey team beating Winthrop. I also want to say the girls basketball team beat Chelmsford on Tuesday, so they're in the second round as well, and their game is tomorrow night at 7 o'clock at Peabody High if anybody's interested. Also, congratulations to all the students that were inducted last night to the National Junior Honor Society, and a special shout out to Miss Isabella Turco, who got an award last night for community service. So just a congratulations to you as a proud dad, Councilor Turco. And then lastly, an invitation to everyone here and to the public that's watching. There's a senior supper on March 9th at the Teregian Center. This is a benefit for the senior class. It's their class auction. It's a live auction, a silent auction, as well as grab bags. There's pizza, there's waters. It starts at 6 o'clock. It ends at 8 o'clock. So the more people we have, the better funds we have for the class of 2019. And what the funds do, they defer the costs for prom, for senior week, and gives them a kitty for moving forward as a graduating class. With that, no further motions, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Rossignol. Councilor Manning Martin.
No motions, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Manning Martin. Councilor Charest.
Thank you, Council President. Just a couple of information agendas. I've been getting a lot of calls and people asking what is that structure next to Shaw's that looks like a large wagon container, you know, shopping cart carriage thing. It's from what I understand, it was started just as I got on the council, a outdoor hand washing car wash that's going to be seasonal. It's been long going. I don't believe it needed a special permit, because I don't remember it ever coming from us when I've been on the council, so maybe prior. But it was it's been a long journey for building this, but it's going to be an outdoor hand washing car wash and detailing. The next one, I just want to remind people, this Monday, March 4th, we are going to have a neighborhood meeting on the developer for the former J.B. Thomas Hospital, 15 King Street. It's going to be held here at the Wiggins at 6:30. I believe all your councilors got an invitation for it. I know the mayor sent out a call for that. Also, they're going to be here with all their presentations, including numerous people on their side, and again, department heads from here in the city. So again, March 4th is the meeting to be at, neighborhood meeting here at 6:30. Thank you.
Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Tim. Special permit for a car wash, what's the shelf life of a special permit if they don't act on it? Because I don't recall ever doing that.
I don't believe that it required a special permit. I thought that it was reviewed by the building inspector. I think that they got a building permit a while ago for that. It's been an ongoing project for, it seems, forever.
Okay, so it's not a special permit.
I don't believe so, Councilor, no.
Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just one reminder that for anybody looking to enjoy the outdoor life of downtown Peabody, we're having an ice bar Saturday night on the Courthouse Plaza, 6 to 9. And the weather looks good for it. It's going to be about 30 degrees and snowy. So, should be a good night. I hope everyone can come. Thank you.
And no nips, right?
No nips.
Councilor Gravel.
Well, Don, I just changed my plans. I apologize, I won't be at the pop-up. I'm going to be in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. I won't be at the meeting. I'll be in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. And but I did want to put out a reminder to people that the George Peabody Legacy Awards will be held here. It'll be the 6th annual. It's May 2nd. And right now we're accepting nominations online, peabodyedfoundation.org. You can fill out a form, or you can download a form and send it to us electronically. But we are accepting nominations, so if there's an educator in your life or somebody that you believe deserves that special recognition for what they did for you or your family from an educational perspective, then please feel free to go ahead and do a nomination. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilor Gravel. Would you mind taking item 10A?
Item 10A is ready for council adoption. An ordinance amending Chapter 30, Vehicles for Hire of the Code of the City of Peabody. Move to receive and approve, to receive and adopt as advertised. So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote, and I just have 2 points of interest for myself. I also have a neighborhood meeting on Tuesday, March 5th, which you're all invited to, South Peabody Branch Library at 6 p.m., and it's relative to traffic issues in Ward 1, at specifically Linfield Street and Bartholomew Street area, which has become quite the topic of conversation in Ward 1. Chief Griffin and Captain Richards have both said that they will be there, and Representative Walsh. So you were all invited. My second and last final thing, as a council, I think we need to address this sound system. I think it's atrocious. I think that I sat here on Monday for the ZBA meeting, couldn't understand a word that anybody said. So if we can't get the sound system fixed, I think that we need to vote as a council to rent some equipment so that our public meetings are actually that public. We have people sitting in the audience that can't hear a word that we're saying. And I'll defer to Councilor Gravel on the question.
Yeah. The situation with the sound system was that after the concerts, there was some malfunction of the main board in that unit that was up there. That board was actually specified by a third-party audio consultant, not the company that did the install. The company that did the install is a company called Signet, and they installed what the third party had put into the spec. The problem with it was that the unit itself has some parts that are made in Korea, and there was a long delay in getting that motherboard. The motherboard arrived, and it was also discovered that there was a problem with the wireless access component of it, which they, to their, I would say, in recognition of what they did offer to do, Signet is bringing in their own wireless access point. My understanding is that has been received, and that this should be resolved fairly shortly. But I agree with you. I've been working with Kurt Bellavance to make sure that if there's no resolution to this, that we again get them to allow us to rent the units to sort of make the sound system what it should be. It's ridiculous. I was here the other morning. It was funny. We didn't have a problem the other morning. The hall was full, and it was for the ECCF kickoff campaign, and the hall was literally full of people, but they were using the wireless single mic, which actually coincides with that system, and the sound was perfect. When we use these wired mics, it's like the difference between analog and digital. They're not really playing nice together. It's carrying sound, but not the right way. So all these directional speakers are throwing the sound every which way, but not the right way. So Kurt was going to check with Signet to see when the installation was going to be done. Then they have to come in and retune the entire system. So hopefully it's not much longer here. But if it goes beyond the next 2 weeks, I would agree with you that we got to push to get something in here that works.
Thank you. And just to expedite that, I will file a motion on that. So if within the next, if Kurt Bellavance determines that the sound system will not be repaired and replaced within 2 weeks, I'd like to file a motion to ask Mayor Betancourt and Community Development to provide the council with a rental system for this auditorium during our public meetings, if in fact it goes beyond the 2-week period. On the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. And can I get a motion to that?